Hello and welcome to Heavens and Tarot. I am really happy you found my channel. If you are new here, thank you for finding me, and if you are a returning viewer, thanks for returning. I am not growing quite so fast here on YouTube, but I feel that I am seeing some movement with my videos and things like that. So that's really lovely, and for those who are taking the time to watch and hear the messages, I am really grateful. I'm really grateful that these messages are getting out there, and I hope that they continue to do so. That said, I am definitely not going to be the kind of reader or the kind of YouTuber that's constantly, saying like, subscribe, comment, blah, blah, blah. That shit is honestly tiring to me. It's tiresome. I don't feel the need to repeat it. I think we all get it. We know how it works. So, if you want to do those things, you will. If you don't, you don't. Great, okay? So, anyway, since there has been, just a little bit of growth here and there on my different platforms. I'm not just on YouTube. I'm doing different things. And I will be making a little bit more of an announcement. I don't know if I should call it an announcement, so to speak. But I'll be discussing a little bit more about what I'm doing. What is my YouTube channel? I do have my link in my bio, which I will explain more about what my links are and things like that. But not today. I just wanted to kind of mention those things because as I have been working into a rhythm each week and kind of getting an understanding of how much I'll be reading and how often I'll have the opportunity to do so and how long editing takes and blah, 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 the logistics and those types of things. I'm feeling now that I will be able to post a little bit more frequently. I had quite a bit going on and still do, really, but it's starting to finally smooth out into what I feel is a lot more manageable, so that my focus is not so much on other things. I've been able to focus a lot more on my home and my personal things that I want to do that things have just gotten a little bit less stressful. I'll just put it that way, without saying too much. I feel like things have gotten just a little bit less stressful. Things are smoothing out for me personally in terms of certain things that I needed to get done that were quite important. These demons, I'll just say here, I don't want to really relate this to racism necessarily, but it is relevant to racism, but just in general, being an adult, oh my word, being an adult in this reality is a trial. It is definitely, it requires a certain kind of patience. It requires a certain kind of mind. It requires a certain kind of mental flexibility. And dealing with people who are supposedly adults, and this has been an ongoing issue since I was a very young person. So adults and adulthood has always been a problem for me, really. But I've talked about this before. When dealing with racism, adults take it upon themselves to treat people who are younger, less mature, children, or even elderly people. But in my case, I'm younger than many of these people that I have to deal with. And so I have to address adults in a fashion that is just, it's unnecessary, it's inappropriate. It makes me feel like if I have to address people 20 to 30 to 40 years older than me this way, then what exactly are we doing here? Like, can you all not just end your lives now and let us be adults? Because this shit is getting old. It's getting tired. I mean, it's been old. It's been tired. I can't imagine what the ancestors had to deal with living on plantations and dealing with this. I'm sure it's not much different, but I can imagine the test of mental strength required. to have to deal with, young people, children, other adults, so forth and so on. And just the nonsense that we get put through, really. Just all the nonsense that we get put through. So, now that all that is seemingly clearing up for me personally, I hope to have a bit more time to make videos and do more readings and things like that. I did some recently, and they were a little bit faster than I wanted, and this one probably will be too, honestly, because I'm really in the middle of like doing my day. But I had been planning to do readings, and I just want to get this out of the way because I feel this urgency, like the need to do it. And I forgot what I was about to say. So, I wanted to, try and get these readings to be a little bit longer. And I felt like I was a bit rushed in my last readings. It wasn't so much rushed, but, I had so much going on and I have to kind of keep things brief. So this time it will likely be the same. I don't think this is going to be extremely long, but I would like to see what energies we have for the beginning of the week and see what appears here. Especially because my last readings were kind of unexpected. I didn't know that's what was going to come out in my readings. I had been thinking towards different things, and so the readings that I had most recently were unexpected and not surprising, but just unexpected. So I would like to follow up on those and see where that gets me, and hopefully by the end of the week I'll feel that these readings have gone through that energy, that previous energy, whatever this energy has been that's been coming up in my readings, because it keeps coming up over and over again. And I've said it before, it doesn't matter how much I shuffle my cards, I keep pulling the same cards. So it's like this energy is just very insistent, right? And I had this insistent urge to sit down and do this reading in the middle of what I'm doing with my day to day. Like, I'm trying to clean my house and like take care of my garden right now. And the spirit said, sit down, you need to do a reading, it's urgent. And so I'm doing that. I'm sitting down, I'm doing this apparently urgent reading. I don't know what's going to come up in this reading. I have no idea. So I'm going to do the usual 3 cards, I think. And we'll just do a quick little today's what with the ancestors, the spirits, the Holy Mother and Father. What have they got to say to us today? So I'm just going to stick my deck of cards over here in the corner because I have them behind me and they're kind of falling. So I shuffled them kind of. I really just cut them. So for goodness sake, I hope I get some different energies today because it's really kind of driving me nuts continuing to get the same cards and so many readings. It's just been back to back. It's like, goodness gracious. So let's see. We're going to see. I'm just going to pull 3 and then I'll go from there, okay? I'll leave that in the reverse. I've mentioned in the past that I don't read these in the reverse, and that's not exactly true. I do read in the reverse. It just really depends. So I'm going to likely be leaving things in the reverse for this reading. Ooh. Yeah, ouch. Okay. I believe I know what's happening here, but let me see what the final card says before I make an assumption. Well, now, I wasn't expecting that to come out with those. So, well, I got that change of energy I wanted, I think. Not exactly, really. Interestingly enough, this is reminding me of a recent reading I did, maybe 2 or 3 readings ago. It's giving me similar vibes here. Interesting. So we've got here the rooster and the sunflower communication, the butterfly, and what does that say there? Snowdrop, hope. Oh, I love snowdrops. And the goat and the willow, overcoming obstacles. I love that the goat and the willow are together for that. That is so lovely. Okay, so we're going to get into what all of this means together. Now, like I said, I have no idea what's coming out in this reading, but it feels to me like it's a follow-up on the most recent readings I've done. So if you go back and look at my most recent short, that short actually talks about overcoming obstacles, but it wasn't the overcoming obstacles card. It was the determination card, and I mentioned overcoming obstacles or something about obstacles, right? So interesting that here it is coming out, fully word for word, overcoming obstacles. So go and check out that short. The title of that short is Nothing Can Stand in Your Way, of course, and you'll see again, what it is that I mean when I say that I was talking about overcoming obstacles. And the previous readings that I was referring to, what was the title? Because I literally just posted it. Like, I just posted it, like, today. I did it yesterday. Why can't I remember the title? But anyway, okay, I just posted it yesterday. So, if you take a look at that reading and then look at this reading, then they very likely should flow together. So I don't remember the title, but I do know that I had been talking a lot about this summer. I was talking about this summer. The cards were discussing like nourishment and adaptability. I do remember that. Yes, the title was something like Being Adaptable is Going to Be Very Important Very Soon. That's the title. Thank you, spirits. And so the energies were referring to the ongoing war situations with the United States and the Middle East, and obviously there's other things going on, but we're focusing on the United States because I am an Indigenous American. I'm Native American, those different words that people know and recognize, right? I don't particularly love those words, but it is what we know, right? So I'm an Indigenous person from the Americas, and so I focus on the Americas in my readings. And so with this war and this overlying political situation, I did talk a bit about how this summer and going into fall is likely going to bring some difficulties in terms of, the inflation, the gas prices, food prices, this kind of stuff, right? So following up on that, it's looking to me like this energy is continuing with something about communication being affected and a loss of hope here, right? These two things being in the reverse is a clear sign that something is not going that direction. Not going that direction. That's not what I meant to say. Something is not going in a positive direction. You have the rooster and the sunflower, both very bold, very bright energies, right? Very sunshine energies, right? You typically hear roosters at the start of the day when the sun is coming up, very bright and early. This is how a lot of people traditionally started their day. Farmers would wake up with the roosters, and that's how they know the day would begin. So that's a form of communication. The sunflowers turning their faces towards the sun during the summertime is also a form of communication. Plants communicate with the sun and move their faces. Many plants move themselves towards the sun throughout the day so that they're getting the most optimal light, so that they're getting the most light. And in that same vein, people, animals, water, things move with the sun. We're generally in constant communication with our sun. So even though I'm talking about the sun here and communication, I'm also referring to, it sounds to me like a very important form of communication, right? We're talking phone lines, internet, television, very large forms of media and communication that may be now cut off or may no longer be accessible or may be affected in some way. Whatever it is, communication is looking to be like a huge problem here. And I say a huge problem because I had already discussed the issues with the inflation and the gas. So this is not a small issue, this communication being reversed. And I think that's why I brought up the sunlight, because the sun, if the sun were to go out, that'd be a huge problem, right? Like, we wouldn't want to deal with that. So I'm feeling like whatever this communication is, this form of communication, it's not a small thing. It's not like your cell phone ran out of battery, okay? That's not what that is. This is a very large form of communication, and with this hope card being in reverse, the loss of hope is telling me once that form of communication goes down, that's it. It's over with. Everything else that I've mentioned in my previous readings is that's baby games. That's kindergarten, okay? That's nothing. Gas prices, food prices, yada yada yada. Those things tend to happen on a global scale kind of normally, really. If you're in a place that's not like Europe or the United States, things like the power going out, the water going out, the internet being out is actually relatively normal, and most people just kind of go about their day when that happens. But this loss of hope card with this communication being in reverse is telling me that it's something a lot bigger than that. And even in places where it's relatively normal, let's take, for instance, Cuba. Cuba has been experiencing this issue with their gas and their power. Now, I haven't been paying that much attention to the news, so I don't know the full extent of the situation, but I do know that Cuba has had issues with their power and their gas for like 40 or 50 years, right? So that's not really a new thing for them. So for them to be experiencing the extent of the issue that they're experiencing, and for these people to be complaining on the media or online about just how bad it is when it's already been pretty bad, tells me that this is a much larger problem than what people have typically experienced, okay? So, moving on through to the final card here, which is the goat and the willow, overcoming obstacles. Now, this is the reason why I said I don't typically read these cards in reverse, because it really depends on the reading. Now, that overcoming obstacles, if it were in the reverse, might be an obvious thing. To me, even though it's not in the reverse, what it's telling me is that whatever group of people is dealing with this situation here, this loss of hope, this loss of communication, whatever's going on, there is no overcoming this obstacle. And I say that because I had a reading, the one that I told you that it reminded me of this reading, and it was a similar thing. One of the cards was in the upright, but with that reading, it didn't really matter whether it was in the reverse or the upright, honestly. These people are not getting out of the situation they're in a way that's going to be enjoyable. If they do get out of it, it's going to be a struggle, okay? Look at all that stuff going on around that goat. It's got to navigate through all that stuff going on around it. Now, okay, goats typically are very nimble creatures. They like to jump, they like to jump on things. They can run through things. They are an animal that really can overcome a lot of obstacles. And if they can't overcome the obstacle, they're probably just going to beat you up. Like, that's the cutest thing about goats. But with this energy here, this is not a cute goat beating you up out of the situation. This is a very stubborn individual who failed to stop these obstacles from existing, or even in some cases put the obstacles there themselves. And now you can see this goat is facing this situation over here. It's looking towards that, or it's turned towards these things. So that tells me that this goat is, or this energy here, is responsible for putting those obstacles there. This individual saw the obstacles, knew about the obstacles, put the obstacles there on purpose, and therefore is not going to be overcoming those obstacles, because you shouldn't even put the obstacles there in the first place. If you put the obstacle there, then, you know, obviously you could just remove the obstacle and not deal with it, right? But this is not that kind of a situation. We're talking about, again, micro level, macro level, as above, so below. Even though I'm discussing the United States, the politics, the war situation, all of this is also applicable to you yourself personally, people you might know, people in your personal life, people around you, people you don't know. You know, it's all of those things, all rolled into one. So, to say again, some people have put themselves in situations unnecessarily that have created all kinds of difficulties, obstacles. And in a war, right, the people who are going to war generally know what to expect when you go to war, right? You don't go to war blind. You go to war knowing you've trained, in fact. So it's not even that you go casually. You've spent some time training before you got there. So you can't be surprised when you get blown up, right? That's not how this energy works. When you go into a situation knowing what the outcome can be, you don't get to overcome the obstacle. You got to go through it. That's it. That's it. You walked yourself in, you got to walk yourself through and out. Hopefully. And hope you survive that. That's the situation that this energy here is. And that's what the loss of communication and the loss of hope is all telling us here. Because not only with just the war, right? You've got to remember, the war is one thing, but a war has an effect on people even if they don't know what's going on. So as I talked about, communications could go down somewhere. Those people could have absolutely no clue that anything is going on as far as a war in the Middle East or anything. The internet could go out in some country, some rural village you've never heard of somewhere, and they won't know that that's what it's related to. They could think it's just something local, right? So the point that I'm making is all of these things, these circumstances could be related to the war. It could be personal. It could be a local thing. It could be all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, it's not a situation in which people can claim to be ignorant of, which is why I think this goat in the willow overcoming obstacles is in the upright, because it's not a surprise. I'm feeling like that's what it is. I feel like it's because it's not a surprise. If it was in the reverse, then I might say this was an unexpected situation. And that's why I read my cards the way I do, because I don't take reversals and upright at face value. It really, truly depends on what's going on with the rest of the reading. And so this goat in the willow overcoming obstacles, these people aren't overcoming a damn thing. What they're going to do is struggle and suffer their ways through all these various situations and probably take a lot of innocent people who had no clue what was going on with them, which is the most effed up part about this whole situation. It's messed up. It's not fair. It's not fair to the innocent people who didn't have anything to do with any of those things. And that's why I'm seeing here these very beautiful colors, this very summery, sunshiny energy here. There's a lot of innocent beings, a lot of children, a lot of creatures, a lot of plants, right? A lot of innocent creatures being dragged into this situation because of these assholes over here who put obstacles and detrimental situations in their own lives and other people's lives and expect innocent people to go through that with them. And so here we have the overcoming obstacles in the upright because, you know, there's a lot of people who don't deserve to go through any of this, who don't deserve to deal with the consequences of other people's messed up actions, who weren't party to the decision making in these circumstances. They didn't make the decision to be a part of this. So those groups, they are going to be overcoming those obstacles. A lot of people will be getting through these situations unscathed without having to deal with all the suffering and the hardships that some other groups of people are going to be dealing with. Because it's not okay that people make decisions and other people have to suffer for them. Their children have to suffer. Their pets have to suffer. The environment has to suffer. Whatever the case may be, people you don't even know have to suffer because of choices that you made in your life. And it's not okay. And so, no, the groups of people who made awful, messed up, unwise decisions, they're going to have a bad time. And we're going to leave them to have that bad time because, again, I like to point out in my readings, it looks a lot to me like when I do these 3-card readings, the final card seems to represent the collective. I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate, but I will look at my readings and see. But it always tends to be like the final card is the positive energy, which is the collective. At least in this case it is, so we're just going to go with that. And so those of us who made wise decisions, who kept ourselves open to the lines of communication. What I mean by that is being spiritual, being connected to your ancestral religious practices, like we're doing the tarot here, all right? Doing your rituals, praying, staying connected to the ancestors. If you did that, you're good over here. You're overcoming obstacles. You've been overcoming obstacles. That's what 500 years of this colonization BS was about, right? Overcoming a ridiculous, impossible obstacle. Okay, so we're good with that. We know how to do that. We know how to overcome obstacles. We've been subjected to dealing with obstacles we never asked for. We did not tell anybody to put those obstacles there, and yet we've overcome them, right? So we're great. We're doing wonderful as far as that goes. But for the rest of everybody else, I don't think I need to reiterate it, but I'll say it a final time. A lot of idiots, a lot of fools, a lot of people who have no place in decision-making positions, a lot of people who are uneducated, miseducated, ignorant, doing things because other people taught them the wrong things or whatever the case may be. These people are about to be experiencing this summer. You see all that bright color? That's summertime. All that there, that's summertime. And this is going into fall. Go back to my last reading and you'll see what I'm talking about here. But this is summer, this is autumn. This summer, it's looking like there is going to be a final nail in the coffin on all those things that I've discussed before. Inflation, gas prices going up, food prices going up, things just generally becoming more difficult. And now we have here the communication card in reverse. All that sunny, beautiful, hopeful morning time energy in reverse. That shit's cut off. You're not going to be having any enjoyable summer vacations, all that hopeful 4th of July celebratory energy out the window. It's gone, okay? So get used to it because that's the energy we're about to be dealing with for the summertime. You might as well settle in and get comfy because that's where it's about to be at. And if you don't know how to be nimble like a goat and either bust your way through an obstacle or stand on top of it, you better lay down because that obstacle is about to be rolling directly on top of you. So I feel that I've said everything that needs to be said in this reading, so I'll leave it there. Thanks again for visiting, and if you made it this far, I really appreciate you listening to the reading. And it's a really strong, heavy energy, once again, that I've got going on in this reading. But there's a lot of positive energy here, and I'm thinking that the next reading will probably follow up on that. So, that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next reading. Bye.